All right. Good afternoon. This is Keith from the National Weather Service in Peachtree City. It's 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday, the 21st, 2025 briefing. Very impromptu. We don't have any slides to show, but I just want to do a quick overview. I'll start with the current watch and warning. We haven't changed anything since overnight. What has changed since yesterday, as you'll notice, there's another row of counties a little further north. One row of counties north that are in the warning. And then there's a couple counties on the north side that were added to a winter weather advisory just for the risk of getting a little snow at the front end of this as it's starting to move in. Overall, the amounts and thinking hasn't changed. However, I'll get into it in just a minute. We're talking with our neighbors from Columbus to, say, Swainsboro, Milledgeville, that area southward, particularly on the southern end of it, Americus, Abbeville, Hawkinsville, increasing your snow amounts with some of the runs that are coming in. I'll show some of that in just a second. Jumping over to the screen that you saw first, this is the radar imagery. Pretty good swath. Let me draw the pen here, red. Pretty good swath of moisture. May not let me. There we go. Here, and we're seeing it stream off to the northeast. You'll note you're just actually precipitating here across all of Georgia and north and central Georgia. However, a lot of that is not reaching the ground. We are getting some reports where you'll see some streaks of higher values in here. Some of these darker green shades that are showing up. Every once in a while, some of those will move across and we'll get reports of snow or sleet happening within those. But the real moisture is really starting to work in now back over Montgomery region. And I'm going to show, let me clear this. I'm going to pull up. Okay, so this is a look at our radar at the current time. And what it looks like is a big donut. And that's because the radar beam is looking up in elevation. And by the time it reaches the precip, it's up about 1,500 to 2,000 feet. It has to go higher in the northwest. It doesn't have to go as high in the south. And what we're noticing is down in Columbus, say Harris County, and similar to what we saw yesterday with some of the models bringing it in, you'll notice that even if I go back, 45 minutes ago, those values have increased across Harris and Troop, which means no reaching the ground. And if you look back into Alabama, let me draw in my pen here. Alabama, this is the MXX radar Montgomery. What I'm focusing on is this area right here. We're actually getting snow reports on the ground. These are all actual snow observed reports coming in. And so what we're seeing is this bigger batch is probably the leading edge of some of that higher moisture that's surging in to the northeast. And so it'll begin the beginnings, or there's the beginnings of this snow starting to move in during the day. So Columbus, I would expect you to begin seeing snow here shortly. Harris County, down to south of Columbus, all the way down to Stewart County. You guys are probably going to be the first ones to start seeing snow reach the ground on a more consistent basis instead of what we get with the off and on stuff now. Temperature-wise, I have the temperatures displayed on here. It might be easier to do it this way. We're still in the mid-20s. That's 28 in Harris County, 30 in Columbus, 28 in LaGrange. Up into the Atlanta metro is mid-20s, maybe 27, 28 degrees. Same holds true out I-20. Down near Macon, you guys are near 30. So everybody's still well below freezing, and dew points are in the teens to single digits still. So there's still a lot of dry air at the surface. But one thing we notice is go back into Alabama here. There's this site here. The dew points come up to 16, and that's because the precip is falling. So we do anticipate that some of those values will come up, and the temperatures will actually stay or fall. In fact, you can see this site here drop to 22 degrees with the snowfall. So I would not be surprised if that happens. And so you guys in Columbus, you may be near the high temp of the day. When the snow starts to work in, your temps may actually fall. And that'll be the case across any location that receives snow through today. Let me close this down. There's the temperatures at 16. So that was at 11 a.m. That was the actual observed temperatures. Again, those mid-20s, near 30. Your freezing lines well down into southern Georgia. There's a little bit of warm air working in southeast Georgia. That'll have to be worked off. And so some of this initial precip may be sleet before that cold air comes back in and gets far southeast Georgia, for those of you concerned about that region. But up here in North Georgia, it's mainly below freezing. Let's start with, I think, let me show a couple model runs. This is, and you're going to see some pretty good consistency between them. And this is the reflectivity type. Here's 11 a.m. Not bad, showing some of the higher stuff coming into middle Georgia. Starting to see a little bit show up in the metro, but really the streak, the stronger moisture, deeper moisture shows up across middle Georgia first. This is 12 p.m. This way. 1, 2, 3, and you start to really see that band fill in through the afternoon hours from south to north. And so we end up with this much larger band, and that's all because that moisture is really starting to work in from the southwest. And so we end up with a pretty good snow band set up across the entire region, really, except for the far southeast and the northwest, where there's still some uncertainty. And the uncertainty is you folks up here, I'll show that in a second, but there's some radar reflectivity that shows up there from the models, but it's not confident in it reaching the ground. But let's fast forward through this before I get on to the next one. There's 3, 4 o'clock. You can notice the colors get more intense as it starts to fill in. So there's 4 o'clock. So probably it's some pretty good intensity back here along the western edge. So southeast metro, down I-85, really starting to pick up across middle Georgia from Columbus to Macon, and starting to get into the Cordele and the far southeastern counties up towards Dublin. But moving forward, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So between that 4 and 7, we see the band starting to move away from 85 and get into middle Georgia, the back edge, so that by 8 o'clock, we're now at Columbus, 9 o'clock, Macon, and then maybe out of there, the far southeastern counties, sometime around midnight or thereafter. That's this model. Show you another one here. This one's a little more aggressive. I don't have the zoom on this one per se, but this one's a little more aggressive, at least trying to get it in sooner. So this is 11 o'clock this morning, 12, and see by 12 o'clock, it's actually got pretty good snow going up into the metro, heavier bands showing up in middle Georgia. And then I'll fast forward. The one thing that's consistent, note here, let me get the pen, note the back edge right here. It basically cuts Atlanta in half from where it's trying to indicate the snow, so that folks on the northwest side, you guys are sitting there watching it snow to the south, and everybody south and southeast side of the metro is getting in on it. Again, middle Georgia, you guys are pretty much solid snow, pretty good confidence down there. Change my pen out. Oops. Get back to the 1 o'clock, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can see again, the back edge working south and east, so that by the time we get close to around midnight, we're exiting our southeastern counties, and it's remnant down in southeast Georgia. One more model. This is a HER. This one is the one that updates every hour. And what it's been showing pretty consistently is, pull this one up, there we go. Here is 11 a.m., 12, 1. So between that 12 and 1, we start to fill in the moisture coming in here. Obviously, we're doing something down there. Oops, doing something down in Columbus. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Notice how the band starts to really expand by between 2 and 3 and surge north and east. That's that moisture really starting to pick up. Again, here's that back edge. Pretty good confidence on that back edge right down 85. And so Northwest Metro up in the Northwest Georgia, hard to say. Areas south and east, the models are pretty consistent. This is a different model showing pretty much the same thing. So we're at least gaining confidence in that. Oops, went too far. There we go. 5 o'clock. There's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Wait for your guys' screen to catch up on the other end. 6 o'clock, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's midnight. A little bit slower at getting it out in the southeast, so we go Statesboro down into Vidalia, maybe back towards Cordele, maybe a little after midnight, but there is a back edge to it that comes in sometime after midnight, shortly after. So what this equates to is obviously we're gaining confidence along and south and east of I-85. North and west of 85, not so much, at least in seeing snow, measurable snow from the model. But I do want to show this because this is what I was just showing on radar a minute ago, where the radar sees it, but it may or may not be hitting the ground, and why we still are holding on to the advisory north and west of the metro is here's the reflectivity between 1 and 2 o'clock. And we're seeing returns up here in the higher elevations. And because there's higher elevation, there's a possibility that some of those higher elevations do capture some of the snow that's falling. And so if I zip forward to 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, you can see there's an expansion of those reflectivity values well up here into northern Georgia, up where our advisory area is. So that's why we're hanging on to it. There is a chance that you could see some pockets of heavier precip, and given your temps in the mid and lower 20s, it won't take much to cause road impacts up there. So we're leaving it in place just simply for the fact that there could be road impacts with any snow that does fall during the day up there, but we're not expecting a whole lot in terms of accumulation. So again, fast forwarding, here we go to 4 to 5 o'clock. Obviously, the higher returns are showing up along in south and east of I-85, where the model was seeing that snow. And I'll go through the evening. You can see those returns along with whatever snow would be falling continue to push south and east. So what that equates to in terms of snow totals, let me find it, this model right here. This is the one that updates every hour. It's doing a much better job of trying to capture some of the nuances on the south and west side. So if I do a snow accum through the period, those are some pretty impressive totals down south and east. And so it's showing obviously a gradient line between Columbus and Macon, 2 to 3. But you get down here into the southern part of our area, and this model is showing 6 to 7. All the way down to the coast. So that's a pretty big area of 6 to 8. We're not so sure we're going to get that much, given that temps are in the 40s down here still in the far southeast, but we are collaborating with Birmingham and Tallahassee about upping our totals of what we do have down here. So you may see a more widespread 3 to 5. I don't know if we're touching 6. I have to look and see what the latest totals are coming in, but we are updating everything from Columbus to Macon southward. So with a particular focus on this region right here is where we have more concern about, maybe up into here, about increasing the totals, because it's a combination of the moisture and the temperatures both coincide with potential for more snow in that region. So stay tuned for some updates in these snow totals for that region. On the north side of this, obviously you can see the back edge of none and maybe some. And so the Southeast Metro, if I put my cursor over I think the gray area represents, yeah, that's about a 1-inch value from, say, Rockdale, Newton County, back through Henry, southern Fayette, maybe southern Clayton, southeast Coweta, back towards Troop, maybe up to an inch accumulation. Northwest of that, it's going to be traced to half, basically, and that pretty much jives with what we have in the forecast. So the probabilities of at least getting up to an inch are decreasing for this region, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to have some and it won't be impactful. We'll say that. Let's see. Let me clear this out. Thing I was going to show. Okay, so taking a look at those models, many of you are asking about onset times. So if I do the lightest precip amount, so when do we expect a light snow to potentially begin? This is your early reasonable time. And I'll let you pick out your area, but down here in central, middle Georgia, sometime in the next hour or two, and then up the I-85, you see noon. If we're going to get some up here, it would be 2 to 3 o'clock in the North Georgia, 2 o'clock out east, and then 1 o'clock Atlanta eastward. When can you expect the heavier snow to set in? And so where I was just showing you some of those heavier bands set up along and south and east of I-85. Let it load. Might take a second. Give it just a second. Hope I don't have to reset this. Looks like it's stalling on me. Let me try and reload this. Give me just a second. And I'll try and get to you some of when the heavier snow might set in, or the heaviest snow, be onset time. Sorry, I'll have to reset everything, all my settings. And this, and this, and timing. Okay. So oops. And okay, uncheck that. There we go. Yeah, that's about right. All right, I'll let that load on your screen. So where that heavier band set up along and east of 85, if you wanted to know when some of the heavier precip onset time might be, this is it. So let's turn on the county lines, turn off the roads. There we go. So Atlanta Metro Southwest, obviously earlier, 2 o'clock. The earliest time would be from, say, south of Columbus, you follow over to Maracus, 1 o'clock. Maybe some of the heavier snowfall might start to set in. Everywhere else, you start to get 3, 4 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock down by Vidalia. And that would be for the heavier snow to set in. If you're wanting a timing on that. So I think that was all I had. Oh, I did have one other thing. Road temperatures. The reason why we're so concerned about roads is not only are surface temperatures below freezing and in the upper 20s, we have, for example, this one here. This is down near the airport. We actually have a road surface temperature of 33 and a temp of 25 at that GDOT site. So given that the road surface temp is 33, it's not going to take much for that snow to actually stick to the roads. And for those sites that are maybe, let me go out here to Rockdale County, maybe just above freezing, 35, that snow may actually melt into liquid and then quickly refreeze on the ice. Obviously, there's brine down, but obviously that isn't going to apply to secondary and side roads. So just keep that in mind. That was one of our concerns going into this, was surface road temps and any potential adherence to the pavement itself. So with that, I am going to stop this and open up for questions.